Hello everyone, this is Scott, and welcome back to Crossout 101. And today I'll be building a level 10 and level 1 in each of the basic secondary factions starter build slash weapons platform that can pretty much suit any setup of weapons. And it's been a really long while since I did this, and one of the things that was being added meanwhile is the 1x8 and 1x4 etc. frame parts, and we're going to make a use of those. Because with this new frame setup, we can really easily fit a generator and a fuel barrel and fuel tank inside the undercarriage. Of course, you don't have to put these things in, but a fuel tank and fuel barrel will give you 15 fuel pair match that you survive with these things still intact. And if I remember correctly, you also actually have to win the match, pretty sure. But it does boost your income in that way, even though they do boost your power score by quite a bit. They're definitely something to consider, and even if you don't end up running them, you can replace the 1x4 part on this side with a 1x8, and then like put the generator in just in the center, and then maybe put some modules in there. So for our wheel setup, since we do plan on putting the weapons behind the cabin, we need a tiny bit of inclination, and that happens if you put some small wheels in front and medium or larger wheels in the back. And in that way, the entire build is going to tilt slightly forward, so give you a little bit more gun depression, so you can aim downwards a bit more easy. And we're using two steering in the front, then a non-steering medium wheel, and then a steering medium wheel in the back. The cabinets we're going to be using is the growl. It's only connected to the front 6x4 frame, so that's something to kind of watch out for. That if you lose this frame, then you lose basically everything except the undercarriage and the weapons that's still connected. So to do that, first of course we do have the weapon mounting. It's one gun mount and two small buggy floors. But on the front we're gonna try to protect as much as possible by using some hatchets, especially melee weapons, to protect the frame from getting rammed frontally and putting some armor on top. And now we're going to go for the side covers. We got a vent window and half wall, which you can, these are all obtainable again at level 10 for engineers, and then scavengers, nomads, and lunatics level 1 each. Then we're going to get some fenders here, and a pair of medium struts, some more medium struts, and fenders in the back here. You got a pretty sturdy side armor frame, which will also be able to block some fire from if we get the weapons here. And this is basically just gonna cover the bottom half of the guns pretty much. And oh, that was actually undoing in the paint. So I'm using sensor paint, but if you basically have any paint, you can just throw it on there. I did actually not find whether you still unlock these paints with the factions, so I couldn't see that anymore. But this is one of the paints that when I started out was the thing that you would unlock by just playing with engineers. So in the back here, you can pretty much do any weapon setup, but generally because you now have 13 energy with the growl being 11 and the generator providing 2 additional energy, you might actually want some space to put some modules. And how I will do it is rotating this weapon mount like so. Now you have a 3x2 by 4 area in the back where you can put things like ammunition and other stuff. For example, if you want some more speed, you could throw in a Dun Horse, which fits in there perfectly. If you're working with heat-based weapons, you can throw in a cooler. Fits in there really nicely as well. And because the energy it supplies, you're generally going to run a 4 energy sets. For example, a set of 4 vectors can actually be run on here, but it is a bit of a tight fit. And you can actually put all 4 of them on weapon mounts. So generally, if you, for example, would run vectors, I would actually only advise running 3 of them, because then you can put them on the buggy floors. Because for the ones that actually don't know, because it's going to be a build there to lower level players, these frame parts, as you can see in the top right, like right under the small buggy floor name, and in the description it says can be shot through. These parts, again, can be shot through, and weapons actually do reduced damage to it. These things basically have a 90% damage resistance to bullets. Explosives still deal full damage to them, but bullet weapons will pass through them, which means they will last much longer than a lot of parts, meaning they're excellent for mounting weapons on top of them. Another weapon setup that you could use is, for example, Spitfires. You can easily fit 3 of the Spitfires on here as well. It would run 10 energy. And of course these do stick out a little bit, but that's not too much of an issue either. And one that I actually found out was what I actually kind of liked was the idea of using something like triple rapier or triple storm if you want a bit of a little more long range build. And again, you have a whole lot of options here. You can even just throw on a pair of little boy turreted cannons. Pretty much, this thing can fit any weapon you might throw on them, with the exception for maybe something like a wasp, because a wasp actually does get blocked off because its hitbox is this right here, and they would actually have to change up the rear carriage a little bit in order to fit those on. Like, it's not impossible for you to mount those weapons, but it's a bit harder than most other weapons. Summiters even can actually also be fit on here, which is one of the maybe like more interesting weapons for people to throw on here, because it's one of the newer weapons. It could be kind of cool. Yeah, but this is really just a build that is tailored to whatever you want to use, you can use. And I'm just gonna take these summiters and I'm gonna take this thing out for a spin a little bit. Gonna mount this one back so it can actually fit on both the gun mount and the Dunhorse engine. And we're gonna give it just one more lick of paint. And we're gonna go in and try to get into a battle. Of course, I do have to point out that with the Dunhorse you get some additional mobility here, which we can make use of. It's the build is overall kind of on the heavier side, so accelerating up to your maximum speed might take a little while. But you do have a pretty high maximum speed to make use of if you want to use some short-range weapons like shotguns. That is no problem at all. That said, if you can, do upgrade the rear wheels as soon as possible, because you're gonna get some oversteering issues because the rear weight is much heavier than the front weight. That gives you a lot of drifting movements that you might have to get used to at least a little bit. And now we're gonna match. I'm gonna do like 1 or 2 matches. And yeah. So in terms of power score, this build does get up pretty high, especially if you use special weapons instead of rares. You can get up to 5,000 power score with relative ease. So in light of that, you might actually want to consider like just cutting the generator, just sticking at 11 energy, and yeah, go with like 3 factors. But like that, you can probably easily stick like under 4,000 power score. That wasn't the greatest of hits. That guy's dead. Oh, cannons behind me. You do want to try to get in front of enemy, like facing the front towards them as soon as possible. Because the rear can be slightly vulnerable. And here, I'm pretty sure that he hit under our build there. I would actually have to rewatch the recording to really make sure, but I'm pretty sure he hit us underneath the side here. Because that is probably the weakest point on the build. If you hit right around here with an explosive weapon, you're most likely gonna detonate the generator, which only has 30 durability. So like an alternative option for if you want to like lower the power score on this would be, of course, to not use the generator. Use the 8x1 frame here. And it would only have 11 energy, sure, but that's plenty if you just want to run 3 vectors. And it would still have some space in the back here to throw on a timber cooler. I have to make room for it for 1 second. There we go. And then you do get some leftover space here. Doesn't matter too much. And of course, just don't force yourself to make use of every single point of energy. You don't absolutely have to. But if you do want to, you can just stick on the second like that. And then you probably just want to throw on something like a large panel to make up for that little gap. And we're going to do, let's say, one more battle. With the vector build. Of course, lower power scores are getting played slightly less nowadays because a lot of people that just like there's less influx of new players in the game because the ones that do like the game already have discovered it and have risen to like higher power scores. So it might take a little while for us to actually get a match here. Meanwhile, I can just show you a little bit of the like driving characteristics from the car. You can really see how it likes to drift there. And here again, you can see really the difference in power score when you decide to go with rare weapons instead of special. We went to from 5,000 to 3,500. And I would say like try to not go much above 5,000 because that's probably not really worth it. Not sure what that's build's trying to do, but we will destroy those turrets with quite a lot of ease. I guess our weapons here also quite easily. But at the same time, it's not very much harder for them to strip our weapons either. No matter how you put it. With our mobility, we do get a chance to at least try to cap a little bit, but with the amount of turrets they got, it is pretty hard. And that looks like that's going to be it for us today. The build is not going to be anything super special, of course. It is very much a build tailored for lower level players. But there's a few things to take away from this build, even if you like decide to not like it and you want to do something absolutely totally different. You put all your explosive underneath your cabin. That is gonna minimize the chance of them actually getting hit. Even though we did get hit on the first match, like most likely, it is a much lower chance than when you actually put them behind the cabin, because then if you got shot from behind, like the first shot we took, then you will pretty much instantly die. And put your weapons behind the cabin, because this is much harder to take out than if your guns would be here. You can see how much more they stick out. These things only have 74 health. And I can actually just show you guys real quickly how easy it is to take out those guns. Even with just like triple vector build. There we go. It's like it takes a second. But if we're like, for example, right here, it's gonna be a bit harder to actually take aim there because the hitbox is a whole bunch smaller. And we're much more likely to actually hit the cabin here. And especially with like weapons that are not hit scan, like weapons that are not something like a vector, you are gonna have a pretty good time before they are able to degun you. And that's it. That's all I actually have for today, guys. There's nothing fancy. There's nothing super powerful, but it is very, very versatile, giving pretty much every option that you might want to use as a lower level player, and having them all in one build. And that's gonna just save you a bunch of time if you don't want to rebuild, if you want to try different weapons, etc. And that's it. I very much hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. See ya!